Thank you very much, and I'm really happy to be here again. It's always the same experience, if I may say so. The presentation time is shortened and shortened every time you are here. Initially it was more than half an hour, now I obviously have only 10 minutes. So I will do my best not to overshoot in time. What I wanted to talk about you is one of these famous buzzwords, digitalization, and what it means for IP management and how these challenges can be mastered best. But first of all, before we start talking about digitalization, we need to understand what digitalization means for a company like Siemens or for your company. Let me therefore give you an example. We all know that digitalization changes everything. It changes the way we live. It changes the way we buy books, for example. It changes the way how we listen to music. It changes the way we look for telephone numbers, addresses, etc. And it changes also the way how we order taxis. But that's not all, because digitalization is also not only an academic and theoretical approach, it's also a new way to create business, to create new businesses, and to execute business in a more efficient and a better available way. Yeah, I just wanted to give you an example of where Maserati equipped their factory with Siemens equipment. Yes, you see the slides, at least partly. If you can adjust the resolution, then we could see it double. That's also, if I may say so, innovation, that you have the computers available that you can present your slides. But anyway, Maserati wanted to increase its capacity while safeguarding its traditional image of exclusivity. Therefore, the company equipped its factory with Siemens technology that were a perfect fit. And they were able to cut development time by 30%, while the overall time to market was reduced from 30 to 16 months, and still they were able to produce more than 70,000 combinations of their cars, and 3 times more cars were produced. How was this possible with using Siemens technology? Siemens technology and Siemens digitalization, it's now really a pity that you can't see the whole slide, but I'm sure the technicians will work on that. The key element of digitalization is that the whole process, the design process, the manufacturing process, the production process, etc., is digitalized, that we have a digital twin of everything, and that everything can be simulated, and then the information is fed back to the original design, and with that we can improve the efficiency and productivity of such a manufacturing thing like the Maserati cars. That looks a little bit better. Thank you very much. So you have missed this slide. We were talking about this one, and I was just explaining in this slide that everything is digitalized from the production, from the simulation to the performance, and this is fed back. And for that, of course, you need a platform, you need a software platform that is called, in the case of Siemens, MindSphere, where everything is interconnected in order to allow these advantages. Now, the system looks like that. You have a lot of basic technologies in the factory, in electronic circuits, in trains, in windmills, whatever. You connect them to this cloud-driven MindSphere application, and then you allow certain apps to be run on this MindSphere application. apps that are either proprietary apps from Siemens or third-party apps. And now the interesting question is, what does that mean for intellectual property protection? I think on the basis where you have the industrial processes, where you have the power plants, where you have the mechanical processes, where you have elevators, etc., we feel very safe, because here it's the IP protection by patents, by design rights, by utility models for the basic technology and the so-called vertical domain know-how. These technology have to be interlinked with this MindSphere application, and there you need a lot of this intellectual property to design this connectivity, and in particular to design the IT security, because obviously we should prevent that a hacker can start to steer a train or a windmill or whatever industrial process. So on the second level, we also feel quite easy, because there we can use our traditional measures for IP protection, like software patents, etc. Also in the midfield of the MindSphere application, we can use software patents to protect the features of this software and this software platform. But on the top level, it's getting more complicated, because there you have certain applications, apps that interconnect with MindSphere to the basic technology. And now you need to understand what part of these apps do you want to keep for yourself, and what part of it do you want to license. So that means, in other words, we cannot use the classical IP measures like tight patent protection, utility models, etc. anymore. We need to understand the business model first. In other words, what does digitalization mean for IP management? It, in a first step, means, of course, more software patents, more trade secrets, more copyright, and combining IP protection with IT protection, because if your innovation is not safe in terms of IT protection, you will not be able to get the full advantage of it. And the problem is that everything is interconnected, as you can see from this picture, and therefore the IP attorneys, patent attorneys, need to first understand what do we want to keep proprietary, and what are we allowed, and what are we supposed to share. That means we need to understand the business model, and in my view, we need to depart from what I call an invention-driven IP management system to a value-driven IP management system. We are all very familiar with an invention-driven IP management system that starts with an invention. Then the patent attorney is drafting a patent application out of it. We try to get exclusivity, and we maintain the portfolio. We are all very familiar with that. But I think that cannot be applied anymore in view of digitalization, because it's so important to first understand what are the unique selling propositions, and to understand what the business model of such a digital world is. That means we need to depart from this conventional invention-driven IP management system to what I call a value-driven IP management strategy, by first understanding the business model, then understanding what competitive advantages, what unique selling propositions do we have in this business model, and how we can we protect that. And then we need to actively pull out the inventions and the innovations from such understanding and protect it by IP rights, in order to make sure that we can protect our innovation, and that we can minimize the competitive pressure on our innovation. I will come back to that later. So the big difference, in my view, in view of digitalization, is that we have to get away from an invention-driven IP management strategy and management system to a more active and pull mode IP management system that I call value-driven IP management strategy. We all know that innovation can also have destructive effects, and if you do not compete with innovation, you probably will lose your business. Here you see two examples. For example, the Walkman has been completely replaced by iPods, by phones, etc., by streaming music. You are all familiar with that. And also Siemens, unfortunately, experienced such a bad experience. Siemens was a leading company in telecommunication with these famous phone stations that have been completely erased and completely replaced by our handies, by our mobile phones, etc. Why that? Because Siemens didn't recognize that the future of innovation in terms of telecommunication will be to communicate over the internet. And with that, they completely lost this business. But what does that mean for IP rights? And I would like to explain that with you at an example that is a little bit more traditional. You're probably all fan of coffee drinking, and you have probably seen this new way of brewing coffee with that Nestle developed with Nespresso, where you have coffee capsules, where you have licensed machines, and where you have a new way of drinking coffee. The interesting thing is that, as you know, since Mr. Clooney started drinking Nespresso, this was in the late 90s only, but the basic technology has already been developed in 1975. And how was Nestle able to bring this innovation, this technology that was developed in the 70s to the 90s and make a big innovation, a big success out of it? First of all, I think we have to distinguish between invention and innovation. Invention on the left-hand side means you take money and invest it in R&D, and then you get technology and ideas out of it. Innovation means you take a technology, you may take ideas and try to make money out of it, try to make a business out of it. And now what's the interlinking factor between that? In my view, it's IP rights. Because IP rights define what you have invented and who has invented it. And without knowing what you have invented and who has invented it, that means who owns it, you cannot do a business with ideas and with inventions. Therefore, in my view, IP rights are the transfer function between invention and innovation. And it's a very nice coincidence that the motto of this conference is "It's my idea," as you can see on this flyer here. And that's exactly also one function of IP rights, to define whose idea and whose contribution to an innovation an idea is. So "it's my idea" is a very good concept for IP rights. So you see, IP rights are the key factor to transform invention to innovation, and this is even more true in the view of digitalization, because digitalization needs a very comprehensive approach. You need to cover all types of IP rights, from patents over registered utility models to registered design, trademarks, copyright, and trade secrets. And even trade secrets will become more important, because a lot of the inventions, innovation in a digitalized world will have to be kept secret, because otherwise you lose your technical advantage. And in order to do that, I will now jump to one of my last slides. We need, in my view, a different job profile of the patent attorneys, where it was enough in earlier times to be a good drafter of patent applications, to be a good drafter of office actions, to be a good drafter of nullity actions and opposition actions. You now need to become more skilled in in communication skills, you need to understand the business, you need to counsel the business in order to pull out the ideas that really protect the core of your innovation. And you will also need to work together with new tools, because I would expect that we sooner or later will have automatic, artificial intelligent semantic searching facilities, and we will probably also have automatic drafting of skeleton patent applications and office actions. So that means that our job profile of the patent attorneys has to completely change. We have to be more a counseling person, more communicative, in order to compete with the challenges of digitalization. And if we do that right, then we are able, as I already mentioned, to minimize the competitive pressure. And if we are able to minimize the competitive pressure, we are able to create financial value with IP rights. Amazingly enough, the founder of Siemens has already recognized that in 1865, where he said, ideas alone have little value, and innovation's important lies in its practical implementation, in the intellectual work extended on it, and in the labor and money spent on it. And if we keep that in mind, I'm pretty sure that we will be able to transform from what I call an invention-driven management system to a value-driven management system. And with that, I would like to conclude. I hope I have not overshooted my 10 minutes.